Hello and welcome to the Lorefield podcast, episode 8, working on title, like always. I am your co-host Yzra, with my other co-host Mitch.
Hello.
So today we're going to be going over the recent log, which doesn't go over too much in new details, and we're going to be doing a full recap of basically all the lore we have up to now, so be pretty fun.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I hope you had a good month, Ezra. Not much happened on the Starfield front again, but we did get a nice little thing yesterday. How was your month outside the Starfield stuff?
Uh, Pretty good outside my TV dying, unfortunately, but I
Oof.
had to get a replacement. So I'm still prepared for Starfield.
New TV though.
Yes, and this one actually has Disney Plus installed.
Oh, that's nice. Have you seen the Book of Boba Fett?
I have, and I've already been shunned for not watching The Mandalorian.
I've seen neither.
How dare you?
I know. I know. I deserve all the shunning.
I'll watch the Marvel shows, so maybe there's a bias there from me.
There's so much Disney Plus content that I'm just way behind on, including pretty much everything Marvel. Anyway, we got really lucky again this month where in the beginning of the show, I remember like the day after we recorded, we would always get a new Constellation Log or whatever. But recently, we've been doing really good. And the day before we recorded, we got a new Constellation Log this month. Do you want to go into this one a little bit? It's not too exciting, but it's something.
Yeah, so it's basically in what the actual blog was for was not a traditional log where we get an email for Constellation members to sign up. Usually, you get the video a few days early, but people in general just share it, so it's not really a special secret when everyone's, you know. But it is art contest, so they're giving away, I believe, 2 pieces of art that are actually signed by Todd Howard and the artist. And if you're signed up already, you'll automatically be entered. You should have an email from that. And I think it doesn't show a lot, but I think it's kind of neat, especially if you're like, I mean, it's signed by Todd Howard. I mean, does it get any better than that?
I don't think so. I think this is the game's cover art. That's not hasn't been confirmed, but that's what they've been using on like everything. This like it's called a journey through space, and it has like the characters kind of looking heroically into the stars and the frontiers on there. It's been really important art through this entire marketing cycle. So for them to do a giveaway of two signed copies of it is pretty cool. By the way, if you want to be entered in this, just make sure you go to starfieldgame.com, scroll down to where it says join Constellation, click login or sign up, and then enter some information. And then once you get a confirmation email, you're entered. You're good to go. So maybe I shouldn't have told you to do that because then it means there's a smaller chance that Isra and I win one. But no, make sure you get on there and get entered in the giveaway. That'll go through, I think they're doing the drawing March 31st. So, if you're listening to this and if it's our newest episode, chances are that the giveaway is still live. So go do that. The other interesting little component of this video was that it was overlaid on top of, or I guess overlaid on top of it was excerpts from a John F. Kennedy speech. I'll just read what he says. I'm going to spare you all my John F. Kennedy impersonation. But he says, the open vistas of space promise high cost as well as high reward. We set sail on this new sea because there is new knowledge to be gained. The exploration of space is one of the great adventures of all time, and we need to be a part of it. We need to lead it. So that's a very cool speech and stuff. Those lines are from arguably JFK's most famous speech. It was one of the most important speeches in American history. In fact, it's been dubbed the Moon Speech, and Uh, the the naming kind of makes sense because it was the one that he famously closed by saying, "We choose to go to the moon by the end of this decade and do the other things not because they're easy, but because they're hard." That speech was delivered on September 12th, 1962, at Rice University in Houston, Texas. And of course, that goal was accomplished that he set about 6 months before his deadline when Apollo 11 landed on the moon on July 20th, 1969. And I've always thought it was really sad that JFK never got to be there to see like Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin return to Earth after going to the moon because he set that goal for humanity. We accomplished it, but JFK wasn't there to see it. So we were denied a really triumphant moment in human history with JFK's assassination. But in this speech, the moon speech, there's something that not a lot of people really remember or talk about. And I love this. JFK, he proposes a little thought experiment. He asks the audience to condense the last 50,000 years of human history into half a century, so a time scale of 1/10 of 1%. And he then pretty much puts into perspective the amount of human progress that's been made in an extremely short window of time. So he says not much is known about the first 40 years, except that by the end of those years, humans had learned to wear animal skins on our backs to cover them. So then, in the last 10 years of this 50-year comparison, uh, man emerged from caves and constructed other kinds of shelter. And just 5 years ago, we learned to write and attach wheels to carts. Christianity began less than 2 years ago, and less than 2 months ago, the steam engine provided a new source of power. Last month, electric lights and automobiles became available, and only last week did we develop penicillin and television and nuclear power. And now, if America's new spacecraft succeeds in reaching Venus, we will have literally reached the stars before midnight tonight. The spacecraft he was referring to was the Mariner spacecraft, which at the time was the most intricate instrument in the history of space science. Sadly, the Mariner craft was unable to complete its mission, but its successor, Mariner 2, successfully made it to Venus. So the use of this speech brings back a conversation we had on another episode of the show, which is about the inevitability of having some sort of divergence from our timeline to Starfield's timeline. And the inclusion of this speech, we now know that the early days of the space race happened in Starfield's universe the same way they happened in real life. That was kind of hinted at before when in 2019 the Starfield Twitter account tweeted about the moon landing. But I think this is more direct confirmation that the early space race happens in Starfield exactly the same way it does in real life. So that's not insignificant. So now we're left with this point of divergence happening sometime between July 1969 and presumably November 11th, 2022. And I don't know, Isra, where do you think this might kind of fall?
In my opinion, I think it'll be somewhere in the early 2000s, right round about then, or the mid 2010s, because we've just left that. But it's probably early 2000, late 90s, I'd say.
Around the 10th planet?
Yeah. Actually, I wonder if Bethesda will be a company in the universe, and then if they actually made a space game in that history. Oh, they might even have a trilogy by then. Starfield trilogy confirmed, everyone.
One game a century? Sounds about right.
I'm also wondering, will a developer insert Todd Howard into the fictional universe? Like in Fallout 4, the painting of Napoleon is just Todd Howard, and I'm assuming that's a joke on his height.
I hope so. It's one of my favorite Easter eggs. Every time I play Fallout 4, I make sure to go there at least once.
I remember when people found it and there was like this moment.
If you don't know, in Fallout 4, in the Dugout Inn, I think it's in like the administrative office. You like walk in and it's immediately to the left. There's a little office. And on the wall, there's a painting of Napoleon, but it's Todd Howard's face on Napoleon. It's a great Easter egg.
The Fallout timeline diverged a lot earlier than people thought.
Yeah. But that's a good that's a good thing to like bring up. Fallout's timeline diverges very slowly. The transistor was never invented, which is kind of like that's always was thought to be like the moment where it split off. But we have things like Napoleon being Todd Howard and also songs from the 70s and some of the later games being in the radio. So it doesn't have to be like one single event where Starfield breaks off and is its own thing. It could be very gradual. In fact, there could be things from the future that are still happening in Starfield's timeline, which doesn't make sense. But the International Space Station is due to be retired in 2032. So they're going to crash it into the Indian Ocean. That's like a scheduled event that could be a past event in Starfield because it's already like planned out and set to happen. Same with the James Webb Telescope being deployed and operational. I think it will be operational by the time Starfield comes out. But they do have this with the way space travel works. It's very long and drawn out in many ways. So they could do this kind of blending of future events already having happened based on the real world schedule of how these things are playing out. So that was an interesting little rabbit hole there with the timeline diversion and the new constellation log. Hopefully, there's going to be some more uncovering of that mystery as we get closer to the game coming out. I'm hoping they'll release some sort of like timeline that you can actually scroll through on the website that has a bunch of lore events. That would be so cool. Um, but until then, that's pretty much all we're able to decipher about the timeline. So now we would like to pretty much do a recap of all the stuff we know about in regards to lore. There's not an extraordinary amount, but as we always say, there's a lot more than I think people might realize. We're going to go through the characters, the factions, and the locations, and there's probably going to be some other tangential stuff that comes up with that. So we're going to start at, fittingly, um, the Journey Through Space art. This is the poster art with the characters that we've seen since E3 last year. There are four individuals on this art, two planets, some weird structure thing, and the frontier. And we don't know who any of the people are. We know who the robot is. It's Vasco. There's I also think the person in the space helmet might be the protagonist, but the three people, the four people, there's Vasco, if you call him a person. There's a woman on the right side, kind of staring off into the sky. There's a bearded man who's kind of small near the middle on the left. And then there's somebody in a space helmet who is the largest person in the artwork looking off to the left. And that's the one that I think might be the player, but it's purely a guess. What about these other two?
I've already made the meme that the bearded guy of Constellations is gonna be the Preston Garvey of this game, as in he's gonna be giving you all the Radiant quests.
Branson Garvey. You think that's Branson?
It could be. I was also thinking the woman, maybe she's the narrator of the teaser. So maybe she's like a higher officer kind of thing. And
Hmm.
then the bearded guy could be the guy in charge of Constellation, like you see on his badge.
Yeah, he definitely has the constellation patch on his shoulder there. I think it's kind of interesting that they kind of obscured it with that structure and the light around it. But like there's no mystery about what it is, but you'd think for like the game's poster, they would want Constellation's patch kind of fully in view, but they went a different route. Also, I think that structure thing that's kind of pointing up out from the planet is maybe the same thing that is in the trailer as a drawing, with the kind of notes scribbled about it. I think that might be the weird mysterious thing that's central to the story that we keep hearing about. The key to unlocking everything.
Here's my question. What does that mean?
What does it mean? The only thing that I can confidently guess about this is that the humanity's greatest question that Starfield will be looking to answer is whether or not we're alone. But all of the other cryptic stuff, I'm so lost. No idea. Also, this ship looks a lot different from the Frontier we saw in the trailer.
Another variation is backing up the hangar theory, where you upgrade your ship cosmetically. You know, like a automatron kind of style workbench. But I was thinking like time lapse, because we've seen multiple variants of what seems to be the same ship. So I'm hoping it's like a modular thing, and then some DLC adds more ship parts, and it looks cool. And I'm fantasizing about it.
I don't blame you. That sounds amazing. And we have that one concept art of the hangar. Are you thinking that might be it?
Yeah, I think I've brought it up before. Like that's where you go because there's like crew members. It looks like a place where you go to upgrade in a grounded, realistic kind of way, and possibly I don't know because ship flight might take in-game months, so like the game might be set over like a few years for the main story. I mean, um,
Mhm.
but maybe there's a time lapse when you add a new component.
That would be amazing. So then presumably each planet would also have its own hangar.
Possibly. We're not sure where the hangar is, but you've got like there's something. It looks like it says it could say H2 in like one of the corners, but on the actual back of the hangar it says H3. So I'm wondering if these hangars are actually like stacked on top of each other or like lined up, like some sort of airbase or some maintenance location, which could be New Atlantis, maybe. You know, with the United Colonies. Um, but I think they'd put something like that on multiple worlds for depending who you would rather align yourself with. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, like, hypothetically, if you could join the one of the two factions, then the other faction becomes an enemy. Then that way you won't be locked out of a hangar. If that truly is its purpose, which I believe it very, very likely could be. Even if there's no space flight, a cosmetic detail, you definitely see that when you land and stuff.
It's interesting. If there's no free flight, then what incentive is there to customize the ship? There is of course, the cosmetics. But like, if I can't actually fly my ship, I'm not about to spend a bunch of credits on a new engine. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
but at the same time, I really want there to be like an upgrade tree, and I want to have like the best ship in the galaxy, whatever, in the settled systems.
And maybe engine upgrades if that's in there. Like hypothetically, if months do pass as you travel, um, like for everyone else, I believe that falls under time dilation. I think where if you go near to light speed, say with a graviton loop array thing, um, I'm not too versed into exactly how that all functions, but something I believe it's like time dilation. So for you, it might be a few days or a year, but for the rest of the world, it could be or like from other perspectives, it could have been centuries or whatever. I don't know. If I got something wrong, please correct me in the comments or something.
No, I've definitely heard similar stuff with like Einstein's theory of relativity. Yeah, that's another thing they'll have to address because they're faced with two choices. Either let people travel faster than light or really close to speed of light, and then you have that weird time dilation thing you have to deal with, or you don't allow faster than light travel, and travel between systems takes a ridiculous amount of time, and your characters should age and die before they can even complete half the stuff in the game. So I'm assuming they'll go with the time dilation, but then are we going to see NPCs age? I don't know.
Oh, that would be so sad. You like you leave a companion behind because you bring in a new one or something, and then when you come back, they were in their 20s and now they're in their 40s or something. And you've only gone like a few months to maybe a year.
And then a couple fetch quests later, you come back and someone else is living there.
Oh, that'd be so sad. Oh, it turns out it's their child or something, all grown up. Like you on the way back, you obtain a quest, attend their funeral. I
Oh
don't know where I'm
no.
going with this. Ugh.
Oh, it just pops up as a miscellaneous objective, like mid-flight.
Yeah,
Oh
and
no.
then you ultimately miss it because time dilation.
And then their child hates you.
Yeah, where were you? I was flying here.
All right. Well, praying we won't have to go to any space funerals. There are some other characters we know about. We're still in the characters category. We've got so after those four people on the journey through space art, we have Emil's letter, which names three people who are in the game, presumably. And these are the only actual names we have of people in the game. We have Vasco, obviously, but these are the only three humans we have. So we have Lieutenant John Tuala, and he is associated with United Colonies MAST, which again is the Military, Administrative, and Scientific Triumvirate. I Googled Triumvirate right before this show, and I didn't realize that a triumvirate is just three people. I thought it was like a three-pronged organization. But the definition of the word suggests that there are only three people that make up MAST. So Lieutenant John Tuala could be one of them. Which one? Kind of a mystery. Yzra, you brilliantly brought up during our pre-show that the lieutenant before John Tuala's name could suggest that he is the military in the military administrative and scientific triumvirate. I really like that theory. So we could have one of the three members of MAST in that letter. We have the commander of the UC Vigilance, which is presumably some ship for the United Colonies, with the brilliant name Kibwe Ikande. I love that name. So he's pretty high up in the United Colonies. And then Pascal Logan is the United Colonies Fleet Admiral. So those are the three names we have. Which one's your favorite?
I've got to go with the UC Fleet Admiral because their last name's Logan. That's a badass name in my opinion.
It's also a first name. We probably have a Logan or two listening that you just made feel really good.
I mean, it's also the name of Wolverine, so basically you share a name with Wolverine, you're automatically badass.
Really?
Well, his real name isn't Logan, but that's his nickname.
Mm. Moving on to our factions. There is an exhaustive list of every faction on the Lorefield subreddit. It has all the sources for where all that information came from. So if you just go to Lorefield and search faction, it should come right up. Israel, do you want to take us through these?
Yep. So, of course, first we've got Constellation, which is an organization of space explorers committed to uncovering the mysteries of the galaxy. They were founded in 2188 via a behind-the-scenes video with the Chronomark watch, and in the year 2330, as one of its newest members in exploring the deepest reaches of the settled systems, you find the key to unlocking everything, which is also described as everything Constellation has been working towards. And you fly the ship called the Frontier, which I love that name.
It's a good name. Very inspiring.
I would prefer to name my ship something like the Krusty Krab or something dumb, but Frontier works just as well.
Take notes for Starfield 2 Bethesda. Krusty Krab for the ship.
Yeah. And someone else will call theirs the Chum Bucket.
There you go.
And next we have the United Colonies. And I can never spell colonies. I can never spell that word. But they are the largest faction in the settled systems, with New Atlantis as its capital. And it was one of the two primary combatants in the 2310 Colony War, which I believe Emil described as bloody.
I think so.
Yeah, something like that. There's an entity within the UC called the Military, Administrative and Scientific Triumvirate, and that is MAST for short. The UC also has the largest fleet of ships that is led in conjunction with the Vanguard and the SysDef. And this is noted from in a letter from the Fleet Admiral Pascal Logan. One of its ships, the UC Vigilance, is led by Commander Gibui Ikande. And that is the United Colonies. Now I will let Mitch do the Freestar Collective, because Mitch is a part of the Freestar Collective. So technically we're enemies, but not really.
Absolutely. All my flares and stuff. Big Freestar Collective guy. So the Freestar Collective is a loose confederation of 3 distinct star systems, and it was the other primary combatant in the colony war against the United Colonies. And there's a distinction of ranger in the ranks of the Freestar Collective, and we know that from a badge that was kind of in with all those patches and stuff in that one shot of the trailer. People with this distinction get the Freestar Ranger badge, and the Freestar Collective's capital is Aquila City, which is noteworthy for its, first of all, distinct architectural style. Kind of looks kind of tattered and old, I guess. And it also is the walled city that has the Ashta outside. So, huge Freestar Collective fan. Oh, thank you for letting me do that one, Yzra. I love the Freestar Collective. They are the first faction that I'm going to join, and I'm going to destroy the United Colonies and make the Freestar Collective a lot more than 3 systems.
And I will do the complete opposite of what you're going to do.
You're going to crush the Freestar Collective scum.
Yeah. So next we have the Crimson Fleet, and it is a loose confederation of individual pirate captains who are organised under the same banner, a Jolly Roger emblem. Due to the nature of the organisation, the Crimson Fleet is not considered a single entity or faction. That does not preclude its inclusion on this list due to the unified emblem and similar motives. We've seen the emblem recreated by a fan, based on concept art, which is pretty cool. But sadly, we don't think you'll be able to join the Crimson Fleet. To me, they feel like they're going to be the raiders or the gunners of the Starfield universe.
Definitely agree. I see a bunch of people online who are like, I can't wait to join the Crimson Fleet. And like, more power to you, but I'm really worried that you're gonna be disappointed when the game comes out. Just remember that every Bethesda game has had factions that you can't join. You can only either interact with kind of from the outside, or you can only kill them. Gunners, raiders, things like that. Yeah. I don't know if you'll be able to join them.
And next we have the Xenoverse Corporation, which is actually the company that rules Neon. So they started as a fishing company, and they built this fishing platform, which I believe Neon's built on top of. And it's on this aquatic world, which I believe originally, before we knew what city was what, I had a theory that Neon was going to be New Atlantis, but I was completely wrong. So, kind of funny looking back at wrong theories, and I feel like we're going to be doing the same when the game comes out. But through that platform, they soon discover the fish with psychoactive properties. So I don't know if you know this. There's a frog where there was this thing where if you licked it, you'd start tripping. So I'm wondering if that's kind of like how Aurora works, which is the drug they discovered. I'm wondering if it's kind of the same. Like as soon as Aurora, I don't know how Aurora's consumed. If you know, if it's just a fish, or they have to cook it in a specific way, or they do something to the fish and then the fish becomes psycho. You know, we're not too sure on that, but people have already called it space skooma, so it's a kind of funny description. But anyway, the Xenofresh Corporation, they saw this fish with the properties, and they probably had a crazy night when they discovered it, and they turned it into a like they started selling it, and they made a ton of money off this one drug, and then pretty much that's Neon. So what started as a fishing platform is now this massive corporation that, from the interiors we've seen, it's very cyberpunk, like dystopian. And people have even called it Space Vegas, because there's a lot of gambling that goes on. But also, Aurora is only legal on Neon. So if you start smuggling Neon in-game, you're probably going to get some space cops on you or something. Going to get your bounty up.
I'm so excited for the smuggling missions that'll gonna come from that.
What you just said is, like, an idea just popped in my head. What if there's a quest where you have to haul something? You know, like my old Vasco theory where he looks like he could pick up crates and stuff.
Yeah.
What if you're told you have to take a crate from Neon, but you don't know what's in that crate, and then you end up getting caught in the middle of a drug Aurora smuggling? Like, that'd be a cool mission.
It would.
Like, and then you find out, and then you can decide what you do, if you're going to dump it or if you're going to complete the mission and risk, getting a bounty or something.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of choice there about how you can get yourself out of that little pickle.
Just consume all the Aurora.
Yeah. Just eat it all. Oh man. You were wondering how Aurora might be kind of extracted out of the fish, if there's like something special you have to do to the fish body.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's that one concept art that's kind of like a street level market, and there's a person, and on a little stand in front of them, they have a bunch of fish. So it's probably those psychoactive fish. So that those things look like they could still swim if you threw them in water. Like they looked like nothing had been done to them. So I think if you just take a bite out of like a living fish from this planet, then you'll get the trip.
Actually, that would be a good incentive for them to keep the breeding population of the whatever Aurora fish breed thing exists. They'd have to keep the population up. If you have to have the effects, you have to have a raw fish, like a living fish. If it dies, then it might lose the psychoactive. Maybe, I don't know.
Mm,
Interesting to think about.
yeah.
Actually, how would they even? Would they have something under the rig, like the stands? Maybe there's a whole colony of like aurora fish, and it's like a breeding ground, and then they harvest some of them sometimes, like the adult ones, and it's just an endless cycle because eventually the fish population will die out, and who knows what Neon, the Xenofresh Corporation, will do if they run out of fish.
That's probably something we can look at the real world fishing industry for. So they have all these fancy ways to catch fish by the thousands. So they have like nets they can throw in the water and drag and pick them all up. Or for lobster fishing, they have those cages. If I don't know if you've seen the show Deadliest Catch, but that's how they do that. There could be some other like futuristic way that we don't do in real life. Um, but also, if it's a nondescript water planet, as Emil described it, then there's a lot of room for fish in there.
I wonder if Aurora's like a deep sea fish, because if it's fairly common, what's going to stop a fisherman just coming to the planet and then just taking a bunch and making his fortune off Aurora?
It's a good point. Is there anything really stopping the Crimson Fleet, for example, from like going to a different part of the planet and just scooping up a bunch of those fish on their own, and no one ever sees them even enter the atmosphere?
Unless where the neon actually is located, that is what I described as a breeding ground for the Aurora fish.
Mm.
And basically, they control that population of fish. And maybe they have a whole underwater network of like nets and stuff to keep them in that general location. Obviously, the Xenofresh Corporation could have manually set up a way to keep the fish breeding to the population stays high, while they also harvest a bunch of them for however they make Aurora, or if Aurora's a full raw fish, they lick, or I don't know.
I like that theory a lot because that also secures their monopoly on Aurora.
Interesting to think about. We've
Definitely.
we've gone over some facts and some theories now.
Yeah.
So recap with extra theories thrown in.
Wouldn't want it any other way though. Next one is Nova Galactic, which is a ship manufacturer that we think is the constructor of the Frontier because there is a Nova Galactic user manual in the trailer, and I think there's something else too on the Frontier. So Nova Galactic is almost certainly the manufacturer of it.
And then we have House Varun, which I don't think anyone knows how to properly spell. There's different variations of how to spell it, but I'm not sure which one's the correct one. But they're basically a group of fanatical religious zealots, so kind of think like Children of Atom from Fallout 3 and 4, I'd say. And they're probably not joinable like the Crimson Fleet.
On the spelling for House Varun, this is a great tip that I discovered when we first heard about the Ashta. If you're not sure about the spelling for any Starfield stuff or anything in like a pre-recorded video, turn on subtitles.
That's excellent advice.
The spelling they use for House Varun is VA''RUUN. Because when we first heard about Ashta, I was spelling it OSHTA, and then checked the subtitles, and it was actually started with an A, ASHTA.
The Oshta.
Yeah, I don't know. I was dumb.
It's fine. I didn't even know it was JFK at first on the recent yesterday's log.
That's understandable, since you're not from the US.
I had my suspicion, but until someone, however, said it. I thought it was some sort of fictional in-universe character. I mean, I've said it earlier, but it's still funny.
I don't know. If I heard the Queen's voice, I honestly don't know if I'd be able to tell you it's the Queen.
You know, I have a secret. I do not know what the Queen sounds like.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a terrible Brit.
So that's House Faroon, and I'm absolutely in agreement with you that that's another one that I don't think we'll be playing as. I'm so sorry for all of you who are like, I'm gonna become one of the cultists, but I don't know. You can't join the Church of the Atom in Fallout 3 or 4. I just don't see any reason for that to change.
Wait, I think you can join them, but only in Far Harbor.
Really? See,
Yeah.
that's again, I gotta play those DLCs.
Gotta make that your goal before Starfield.
It is. It is absolutely my goal. Probably a summer thing when classes aren't going on. So that's really interesting. That kind of changes my perspective a little bit because their DLCs historically kind of hint at base game features for the future, Hearthfire and the settlement building, etc. So I don't know if you can join the Children of the Atom in Fallout 4, maybe you can join House of Faroon in Starfield.
I'd assume they'd be like a minor faction though, rather than like a big player. I feel like they're going to be limited to like they have their own little town or settlement or something, but they're really like preachy and the apocalypse is. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think like a cult or something.
I do hope they have like maybe even their own moon. They have like this uninhabited little pocket of the settled systems. You just stumble across them exploring. That would
Yeah.
be cool.
So if you're alright for us to go over the additional factions and corporations.
For sure.
Okay, so these factions are only ever mentioned or seen by name or have minimal to no supplementary
Yeah.
information besides, for some of them, personnel or products featured in concept art. Do you want to kick this off?
Sure. At the same time we learned about House of Haroon, we also learned about Ecliptic Mercenaries and Spacers, who I think are just common enemy types. I think Spacers, especially, are just going to be like some elite raiders. They were referred to as violent Spacers. So I don't know if that's somebody you can really cozy up with and join.
Well, they have mercenaries in their name, so they're probably maybe more annoying Crimson Fleet.
Yeah, I mean, it could be to keep up with the Fallout comparison. Crimson Fleet could be raiders, and Ecliptic Mercenaries could be gunners.
I like that theory.
Thank you. So then maybe House Varoon is like the name is escaping me, but that faction that's based out of the Hall of the Vigilant in Skyrim. They're vampire hunters.
Oh, the Vigilant Standard.
Yeah, maybe that's another example of these factions that you can't really join, but they have presence. They have some cool lore. I think that's going to be a lot of these. So just yeah, get so worried for my fellow Starfield lovers. We're hearing about these awesome factions. Don't get your hopes up that we can play as all of them. I don't know. I love you all and don't want to see you get hurt.
It's very easy to be consumed by the hype and like all of this new when we do get new lore. When we get new info and then the speculation sometimes gets ridiculous. Like, for example, people saw XO1 power armor in Fallout 4 D3 demo, and everyone was like, "Oh, the Enclave have to return. The Enclave are definitely going to be in Fallout 4." And guess what wasn't in Fallout 4?
The Enclave.
Exactly. It's very easy to be consumed by the wild speculation and rumors and stuff.
Very well said.
Just don't overhype. Don't overhype yourself. Keep your expectations low, and then you'll never be disappointed. But you can obviously, still be excited. I mean, we're very excited.
Oh yeah. It's like my whole life at this point. I have my partner got me an amazing Christmas present. It's this art that we were talking about earlier, a journey through space. It's a like a canvas of it. It's hanging up on my wall right now.
Oh, that's neat.
So yeah, yeah, I'm definitely not saying don't get hyped because I would not be a good follower of my own advice if I said that.
It's
There's a sweet spot.
yeah. The reason why we can safely guess the Freestar and United Colonies can be joinable is because they're the two largest factions, and usually you can join the two largest factions.
Yeah, I think the real obvious parallel with UC and Freestar is Skyrim Civil War, Imperials and Stormcloaks.
Yeah, and you can't join the Falmer in that civil war.
That's right. My favorite quest in Skyrim is one where you kind of pretend you're a member of the Falmor and you join that like dinner party to
Oh
infiltrate
yeah,
the embassy. That is such a fun mission.
there's actually a whole disguise system that most people never notice. Basically, as you like walk around, usually they straight up attack you, right?
Hmm.
We're going off topic right here, but we always do. There's a whole disguise system. If you wear far more robes, you can just walk past everyone if you don't hold your weapons. But depending on your range, I believe it's range, but depending on your race, it's depending how quickly they'll realize you're not a Falmor member. And you can even get a guard to leave duty on the door to the place you're going in. Obviously, you have a higher chance if you're a high elf, but you can sneak past every fight in that place. Just a fun detail.
That is a very fun detail. I've never played as a high elf, so I had no idea. That is cool.
I only discovered this last year, ironically. I keep learning new things about Skyrim. It's ridiculous. It's full of details. Like, I know Fallout 4 at the back of my hand. I've seen basically everything because Fallout 4 was my life more than Skyrim ever was. I got consumed by Fallout 4. I'm getting all nostalgic now.
That's why we love Bethesda so much.
Yes.
Before we move on, I just have one question for you.
Shoot.
Have you heard of the High Elves?
What are the High Elves? Do they get high?
I don't know. I don't know. Is there a line that I'm supposed to know after that?
No, 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 no.
Oh, okay.
We've just diverged into Elder Scrolls for a minute.
That's okay. It's not like it was a particularly busy month. You gonna take the next factions?
Yeah. Next, we have a faction called Combat Tech. We've only seen this in like small writing, but they're a weapon manufacturer, maker of the Grendel model lightweight personal defense weapon, which I believe is the gun in the teaser. So we have a weapon manufacturer. Pretty neat. See what other weapons they make and if there's any like rival weapon manufacturers in Starfield.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting one because it shows that they're, at least in this way, going deeper than some of their other franchises in the world building. We don't really see like brand names on the gun models in Fallout 4. to my knowledge. Like the
You're
10
right.
millimeter pistol. Yeah, you don't see like who made it.
That is interesting. I feel like they kind of have to go in depth with this universe. Because, like, they have to. I feel like the first game's going to be more setup than anything. More like set the tone and the general theme of the franchise. Which ultimately, if Starfield does well, it will lead to a full franchise. And I think that's what Bethesda ultimately want from this. Is another franchise to have to balance out their development time. So yeah, that was a combat tech. Next we have Chunks, which is a food manufacturer and distributor. We've seen some of their packaging. Like there was like a cube thing in the teaser, in the same scene with the gun on the table. Have we seen any more of Chunks besides that?
I think all we saw was the ground. It was like ground beef, I think. And like you said, that little cube package thing. I did they make the worms?
I don't think we saw who made the worms.
Okay. Yeah, because there were a couple different like makes for that food. It wasn't all chunks.
I think there'll be a handful of factions for like weapons and food distributing. Some stuff we probably won't see till the game comes out, and some stuff we might see at E3 possibly. And then next we have a brand called Tranquility, and they are a beverage brand, which I assume like alcohol, possibly. Maybe alcohol in there somewhere. I'm sure. Oh, obviously, there's probably going to be alcohol in Starfield. Whether junk flying is a crime, this remains to be seen.
Mhm.
I assume we're going to see more beverage brands. I'm sure we're going to see a ton. Probably like minor factions that probably won't get expanded till later. Like Far Harbor. I mean, you haven't played it, but there's a brand called Vim in there. And there's other brands of soft drink besides Nuka-Cola. It's kind of cool.
Tranquility has its appearance in the trailer. That was the one that was like written in what looked like a Sharpie, and it said it was telling Vasco to pick up Tranquility. I think it said don't get decaf. So it's caffeinated, or there is a caffeinated version of Tranquility. It's spelled, it's like the word tranquility, but instead of a Y at the end, it's TEA. So probably a tea brand. And then I'm sure they make other stuff too.
I don't know why my mind just jumped to Tranquility being an alcohol brand. Massive oversight on my part.
Oh, good. I mean, there's definitely alcohol, I think. That wouldn't have just been eliminated
Of
from the
course,
universe.
what franchise would it be with no alcohol? As long as one brand makes pizza in the year 2330, I think I'm happy. Can't go wrong with a sliced pizza.
It's your time to shine, chunks. Show us your pizza.
Vacuum sealed pizza, I'm like,
Ew.
yeah.
Oh.
You had to put that image in my head.
Oh.
It would be because like what the chunk branding, it's like a black carrier bag. Is all you have to picture is a pizza in a black bin bag and then vacuum sealed. You basically got that image in your head.
Dehydrated pizza.
One way to ruin pizza is dehydrate it.
There's always one gross thing that comes up in every episode. I think we
Yeah.
got it out of the way there.
we get derailed so many times in topics.
That's okay. It's part of the fun. So the next faction, Cydonia Security. This is actually appears in the same place as Tranquility. It's written on the mirror in the trailer, and there's kind of a joke written. It says Cydonia Security does not have a sense of humor, I think. And Cydonia Security, I've done research on the name Cydonia before. It refers to a region on the planet Mars. So that could just be a reference to like space in general, or the company could be based on Mars. Who knows? But that's where that name comes from.
And then for the well, the next two they're kind of like grouped in they're kind of grouped in a Mills document. So we have the Vanguard, which are defense contractor, and we have SysDef, which was mentioned earlier, which is also a defense contractor. Well, this one's more explicit because it has defense in it. But I'm assuming def means defense. So yeah, the name could be short for system defense, but Vanguard's a bit more in the air, exactly. But they were grouped together in the document, so we're kind of like bundling those two together.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. So Pascal Logan was the author of that letter, and it was kind of written as if it was going out to all Vanguard and SysDef personnel. So it said like if you have questions, then refer to John Tuala for questions with the Vanguard, and ask Kiwe Kande for with questions for SysDef. It was worded kind of strangely, but it almost seemed as if Vanguard and SysDef are like two separate defense contractors that the UC has both hired. That was the way I read it, but that is kind of a guess. It's really vague the way the letter's worded. And then we have a small number of additional factions that we know absolutely nothing about, but have only seen in concept art or some other image. We have K Factor, no idea what that means, but it was in the hangar art. We have Xiang, Xiang. We also have no idea what that is. It was on some type of equipment that was on the wall in that laboratory concept art. We have Ryzen Industries. This was in neon. It's that pink lettering in the really cool uh, I don't know, the art with the train station that has all the buildings and stuff. It was that big pink sign is hard to read, but I think it's Ryujin, Ryujin Industries. And then the very last faction was Axion Energy, kind of a special one here because it's never been seen in any official stuff. It was only in leaked screenshots, so we can't actually say that that's in the game at the moment.
Just a side note, I'm googling those two names because they sound Asian to me. The one with X, I believe it says Xiang.
Hmm.
Apparently, in Chinese, that means to go forward as a
Really?
surname. Apparently, and a Ryujin, it's got something over the U. It's a deity of the sea, basically, in Japanese mythology. If it is that, and it's spelled exactly how you wrote it in the notes.
A deity of the sea.
Yeah,
Well, we see it in neon, which is on the ocean.
it's a Japanese dragon, and apparently it symbolizes the power of the ocean. It has a large mouth,
That is
and
super, super interesting.
basically a god. I just thought I might Google it because they sounded Asian to me, and I thought that might be something to look into.
No, amazing work. My mind is blown by Ryujin. I had no idea what that means. I never thought to look it up. I didn't even know if I was like reading it correctly. But that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Neon is on the ocean.
It would have to have something like a squiggly line over the U. So that would be the only thing, but Ziyang apparently is a surname to mean to go forward or something. I did a quick Google search.
Yeah, great work. That is awesome. That's every faction. Now we're going to go through all the locations we've seen, all the biomes that we can expect in the game. Yzra, you want to start us off with those?
Absolutely. Alright, so for locations, there is the Crystal Desert, which is like the kind of like desert with like all the like sand sculptures and the crystalline layers. I believe we've talked about that in the previous episode. That was in one concept. And then another one we've seen twice. We've seen a real world scan, I believe, and we've seen concept art with the large toxic crabs, which joked are already called mud crabs. Starfield, confirmed in the test universe. But yeah, do you want to handle the next two?
Yeah, sure. Real quickly, though, what do you think the odds are that those two are the same planet?
Maybe a 50-50. Because there's always a good chance that if there's only a few a few planets with explorable areas.
Yeah, they do seem like they could be the same planet. Obviously, the big problem is that the one with the crabs doesn't have those kind of crystalline layers. So I don't know. Could be. And likewise, the one with the crystals doesn't have that toxic gas. Of course, that could be solved by, explaining it away with different biomes or whatever. But yeah, I think they could be. They could be the same planet. The next one was the Snowy Moon, Skyrim in space. This is the one with a beautiful snowy landscape and a rover with two people standing outside it. And there was also that ice cave that was probably, I don't know. I shouldn't say probably because I have no idea, but that could have been the same planet, maybe like underground, whereas the surface of that planet is the Skyrim in space.
So the next two, one's a Lush Jungle, which we got into a prehistoric topic actually on the first episode, which is probably the roughest episode we did being the pilot. Yeah, that's like a prehistoric Earth, or like what Cyrodiil could have been if they didn't go with the Lord of the Rings direction. That's just like a what if, but anyway. I mean, the jungle concept, I think that might be my favourite planet, and I don't believe we've seen much of it. I believe that's going to be like a planet they haven't really shown us yet. I'm really hoping they show some of it off at E3. Because that jungle would be so awesome to explore. Especially if it's actually like almost like a full of prehistoric Earth with like giant insects or like some weird giant mutated, not mutated, something akin to bugs or insects on the scale they would have been in a few million years ago.
Completely with you. The other ones, well, the thing about the Lush Jungle is that it's so unlike anything Bethesda's done before. Like the deserts, they haven't done like a proper desert before, but I think parts of Fallout 3 you could say are pretty desert-like.
Mm.
The snow stuff is obvious, that's Skyrim. Like a rainforest jungle thing with like giant vegetation and stuff. Never seen anything close to that from Bethesda Game Studios. So yeah, that is absolutely my favorite environment for the same reason. That's just I cannot wait to get into that one.
And then we have the Fallout Ashen ship graveyard. We've actually seen it twice. Once, the first time we saw it, it was flipped, ironically. And then in the Skyrim concert, they actually showed it the correct way. Because people were already flipping the image because they knew. So I don't know if that was a mistake when they originally showed it. I might show both versions, transition into before and after. And that's the concept that we have the theory that could be Aquila's planet. Probably only a handful of planets with decent map sizes, so the snowy mountains could suggest this is Aquila, which means all these crashed ships would suggest the United Colonies got very close to wiping out the Freestar. If our speculation is correct. And that might be why they signed the treaty, but it's all speculation for now. But these ships in this concept, they have completely destroyed the environment. And yeah, that's a cool location. I think that's going to be like a glowing sea kind of area.
I think I've made a similar comment on a previous episode, but I really hope that we can explore those ships and hear like the dead creaky metal above us as we like walk through with our flashlight. And I think we talked about the Ashta being in there too, as an extra kind of dynamic.
Well, there's like there's those mechs outside, I believe. So they might be a pain. But the implications of this is Aquila's planet. There are so many implications about who essentially came out on top in the war. Which also do you see pushing into Freestar Collective towards the end? Basically would have to force the Freestar to sign a treaty or get obliterated. And obviously, the United Colonies are probably stationed far away, so they couldn't exactly just take over. Probably. You know, they'd probably sign a treaty and then the Freestar can remain independent while not being happy about the outcome. But you see having the strongest fleet sort of lining up, but again, it's all speculation for now. So, don't take it as fact.
Yeah, that's solid speculation. I think with this still kind of being in the early days of humanity going beyond its own solar system, there's still probably going to be a limit of how many people there are. So I don't think the United Colonies could realistically have enough personnel to take over and control Freestar Collective, even if they wanted to. It seems to me like there's probably a battle over Aquila. A bunch of ships fell out of the sky and made that awesome looking ship graveyard. And then UC lost too many people and had to back off. I don't know. That seems like it could be a realistic storyline from what we've seen so far.
I feel like the Freestar, if the UC got into their system with Aquila, that it's pretty much game over. If they don't sign a treaty, the UC is just going to wipe them out instantly. They're going to show, like, it's either take the L and sign a treaty so the war stops. Because they said it's an uneasy peace, so it doesn't sound like it ended on the best terms. But I feel like if the FC was backed into a corner, a peace treaty is the only logical step.
How dare you question the strength and resilience of the Freestar Collective? No, I'm kidding. I think you're absolutely right. This sounds like they have less people, I imagine they have less systems. I feel like if we were told that Freestar has 3 systems, I think United Colonies probably has many, many more.
The exact number I think still up in the air, but there's heavy speculation on that. But we'll find out very soon because we are actually in Starfield's launch year. So, pretty cool.
Yeah. And this is another thing that occurred to me. Around the time this episode drops, we will be about halfway between the new year and E3.
That is terrifying.
Isn't it? Crazy.
It's very... When I was growing up, time used to feel like it was moving so slow. Some months used to last forever. And as an adult, time just... It just vanishes. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's scary. Let's keep talking about Starfield so I don't get
Yeah.
too depressed. The next environment is kind of a dark cave with the explorers. It's only seen in one concept art. It could be really any environment because we only see the interior of a cave, but it's a really important concept art, I think, because you have the explorers stepping out of their ship. They've got like gas masks on and weapons drawn and flashlights pointing down into this cave. And it's kind of hard to see, but embedded in the rock at the end of the cave is this little capsule thing. And obviously, the implication is that they're there to collect that thing because it's pretty darn important. So that's one of my favorite concept arts because it's probably a main quest item. And it just looks like it almost looks like a pill capsule. It's kind of shaped the same way. And it has some writing on it that's too small to make out. And then the following one is the shot that shows Aquila's exterior. So even though we think this is the same planet as the ship graveyard, it's still kind of like a different biome or environment. And this is a recap, so we're going through all the locations we have. And as we all know, Aquila, capital of the Freestar Collective, this is the home of the Ashta, the scary wolf velociraptor hybrids. And Aquila's a walled city, and they're kind of snow-capped mountains off in the distance. So I speculated before that those could be geographic barriers that you can't explore past. I'm less confident that's true now because I think the other side of those mountains is where the ship graveyard is. Who knows?
And of course, next we've got the ocean world with Neon, which I've described as an oil rig because that's what it looks like, with the platforms. But I think they could be just used in general, general platform stuff. But Neon's in kind of a unique place. It's in the middle of the ocean. We don't know if the whole planet's water. I believe in the concept you can see land in the distance, but I'm not entirely sure. But this looks like deep water anyway, so maybe the planet is more water than the Earth is, or possibly. But yeah, of course we have Neon, which is the pleasure city. Think of like this is going to be the place where you gamble all your space bugs, and get high on Aurora. That'd be an interesting party. And yeah, that's Neon. And then after that we have, of course, my favourite city, New Atlantis. And that's like surrounded by like grassy cliffs on either side. I believe we've seen both sides of the city. I've suggested that before, like because we've seen two concepts of the ends, and I'm wondering if we're seeing either side of that rocky mountain. There's different things on either side, so there's more platforms on one side, and it's more greener on the other. I think that's a possibility. But New Atlantis looks like it's like a utopia. I've described it as before. And they've got like Ezio cloaks, which is how I'm describing them. Like people in the city, we've seen people like wearing cloaks like over their shoulder. It's kind of like Ezio in the Assassin's Creed games. Kind of what it reminds me of. For one of those cloaks, I would kill an unnamed citizen just for that cloak. That sounds awful, but it looks cool. I like
Get
style.
your get your pickpocket skill high enough, and then make them naked. Well, then you don't have to kill them. Then you just get their clothes.
I did. The captain of the Pridwen. I stole his hat.
Off his head.
Yeah, I really liked the hat when I first played the game, and I was like, I'm gonna steal this.
That's great.
But you can't steal Maxon's battle coat in Fallout 4.
Oh, that's a shame.
A lot of people wipe out the Brotherhood just for his coat. You'd be surprised.
I think my favorite part of New Atlantis is that we've seen enough concept arts that if someone really tried hard enough, I think you can draw a map of the city already. That should be a side project of mine if I can find the time, because I'm quite confident that we could do that.
Like, if we've seen both angles, if that's true, then 1, 2, 3, 4. We've seen 4 concepts just of New Atlantis. That's a crazy amount just for one city. And I feel like that's going to be the city they want us to explore the most. Because we've seen more of that than we've seen of Neon. We've seen 2 angles of Neon and the exterior. And then we've seen 2 interiors of Neon. Which, yeah, that's still 4, yeah. It's kind of balanced out, actually.
I suppose so. I think with Neon, though, there was a lot less you could glean, especially with those exterior shots.
Mm.
And the exterior shots were kind of the same thing. They were just like different styles.
Mm. Aquila, we've seen 2 images of itself. We've seen one exterior, and we've seen inside a shack that we believe is Aquila because of the overall design.
My baby Aquila not getting the attention it deserves.
They don't even have functioning toilets. I mean, that's rule 1 of civilization.
I will use a bucket in Aquila and I will enjoy every moment of it.
And I will enjoy my multi-million apartment, credit apartment.
All I ask is that you respect my people's culture, okay, and their choice not to use toilets.
As long as you accept my ridiculous fashion sense with all the cloaks and stuff.
Fine, fine. We can come to an agreement. So there we go. That was our recap of every location, faction, and character that we know about in Starfield. Obviously, there were some additional lore bits that we didn't talk about today, but I think for those 3 categories, we hit pretty much everything. Did you have any closing thoughts about any of these before we go on to our final segment of the month?
Nope, pretty much got it all out.
So, our last segment of the show, if you've listened before, you'll know this. This is our recommendation of any work that scratches the Starfield itch. I guess I'll go first. I'm pretty excited about this pick because it's a game that I've been wanting to play for a very long time. It left Game Pass before I had a chance to play it. Like I knew it was on Game Pass, so it was like, "Oh, it's there, so, I'll get around to it." And then it left before I actually played it, and I was heartbroken. Then it came back just a month or 2 ago, and I played the heck out of it and love it. Outer Wilds. Love this game. I knew I'd love it before I even played it, and it is awesome. It is a handcrafted open world, open solar system space exploration game, and you are an alien, and you can talk to the people in your village, and then you get in your ship, and you fly it around, and you just explore, and it's so charming and fun. You can probably get 15 to 25 hours out of it, depending on your pacing. It is an absolute blast. Great music, great storylines, super fun game, Outer Wilds. Like I said, it's on Game Pass, so definitely try it if you're subscribed to that. Yeah, that's my pick for the month, Outer Wilds. How about you, Yzra?
I'm going to recommend Mass Effect 1. I've been playing Mass Effect Legendary Edition because it's on Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play, which is under that, and I think that's on PC as well as Xbox, which I'm playing on Xbox to get more use out of my Game Pass sub every month and distract myself for Starfield outside podcast editing. But Mass Effect 1, I completed it the other day. I mean, for it's like a 2007 game, I believe. Is it? It's a really solid experience. I definitely recommend it. If you got Game Pass Ultimate, download it. The Legendary Edition, it's, you've got all the bug fixes. It's a solid game. And I'm on Mass Effect 2 now, and I'll probably recommend that next month. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, I'm recommending Mass Effect 1. Got Game Pass Ultimate. I definitely recommend it.
I have not played Mass Effect. I tried to play the first one, and this was really stupid of me. But I tried to play it right after the remaster was announced. So instead of waiting for the remastered version, I just was like, "Oh, that's right. I've never played Mass Effect." And then went back and played the original. So I got presumably a far inferior experience because I've heard great things about the remaster. But it was dated, the graphics were not the best, and I kind of put it down after about 5 hours. So I really need to play the remastered version. I assume that's what you're playing.
Yeah, Legendary Edition.
Okay. Yeah, that's the one I gotta play. But yeah, that's a great pick. I will say I was really impressed by the writing. And there's that very first at the very beginning of the game, you're on a ship and you can talk to all these people and get info about the world, and you just like can dive right in and have these like long conversations with the NPCs. And I remember thinking about Starfield during that. Like, I can't wait to do this with Starfield and ask E uh, Kibwe Ikande about the Freestar Collective or whatever.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I've been playing it. It's like Starfield could be someone like this if it's the same kind of like. Well, if there's no space fight, it could work like Mass Effect. You just choose a planet and then you can launch yourself there, and there's a cool cutscene, and you see your ship, and you see yourself land. That could be amazing. I'd be fine with that if there's no free flight, which I'm not expecting. Trying to temper my expectations for stuff like flight.
Yeah, as you should. And I don't think Mass Effect has flight.
The first game doesn't. But I'm playing the second one now. But kind of like, instead of just picking a planet, you can kind of like fly around the solar system manually. It's kind of cool.
That's pretty cool.
But obviously, it's a top-down view, so it's basically like playing a board game.
Oh, that sounds neat.
It's kind of neat, and then you press A to enter the orbit or whatever. Kind of cool.
Great pick. So I think that's the end then. Episode 8 of the Lorefield podcast. We covered the new Constellation Log and then, of course, the recap of all the different lore bits that we know about. This was a lot of fun, and I cannot wait to be back again next month. Now, okay, I keep saying, I think for the last 3 shows, I've said, like, hopefully we'll have new news to talk about. And we had a little bit this month, but hopefully there will be like a lot to get into next month. I want to have one of those really long shows where we break down a bunch of new concept arts again.
But yeah, this is very fun to recap everything and catch any new viewers up with everything that's gone on.
Yeah, absolutely. If you learn something new, then feel free to share the podcast or something, or like it, review it, all that amazing stuff. You can find us on Reddit at r/Lorefield, Lorefield net on Twitter, Lorefield on YouTube. So yeah, follow us on all the places if you want. I'm Mitch. This is Yzra. And yeah, we'll see you next month. Thanks, everybody.
Bye all.